The last time we talked, which was like a few months now ago. Oh, it was February 21st. I remember that
Right.
because um, February 22nd, I held my first sacred circle for the Patreon community. And as I welcomed them, I like burst into tears, and that began this like spree of like crying every day for like 8 weeks. I maybe missed like 2 or 3 days like in there. And all of that came out of our conversation last time around meditation. And like basically, your approach to meditation shifted something inside of me that like renewed my approach so that it was like there was no right or wrong way to meditate. It was about the feeling of like holding space open for yourself and like just legit wanting to spend time with yourself the same as you would anyone that you loved. And like that seems so simple, and yet something opened inside of me and meditation suddenly made sense. And I
Mm-hmm.
accessed this like whole new place. And as I did that, it was like all this energy was coming in such that I had to cry. I had to like, there was like stuff in there that was in the way that like had to melt and
Right.
come out. Um, yeah, it was like, it's been a powerful few months since we last talked. I guess that'd be like 2.5 ish. And
Right.
time that like we've been trying to connect and it just hasn't happened. And so this space, this elongated 10 weeks or whatever, just like naturally formed itself. And here we are today. And I'm, yeah,
Yeah.
buzzed totally. So thank you
Yeah.
for last
And
time and this time upfront.
yeah. Well, you think about it whenever you're talking about learning how to just hold space for yourself. It's like you have all this energy to do it for other people, regardless of how they show up. And I realize you don't necessarily have a choice in the matter in terms of when the way they show up. But I'm saying even then, you're trying to work with it. You're trying to sit there and listen to what they're saying. You're trying to gain a perspective about what it is they're talking about. You're adjusting your body language. You're doing all this work. Well, why are we not having that same drive and desire to do that for ourselves? Why? I mean, if anybody we should be doing that stuff for is for ourselves, because we're the ones that it's like being on a plane. Make sure you put your mask on first before you try to help somebody else.
Totally.
So it's in the same sense with meditation. It's like you're taking that opportunity to really just listen, to whatever is going on in the body, the thoughts and all the nuances that's happening as far as your processing and stuff like that. And you have no distraction.
Yeah.
You have nothing outside of you tugging your attention to something else. No one trying to interrupt that thought process to tell you, well, no, you should this, that, and the other. You actually have free access to the real way in which you feel in any given moment. We did like for integration, we have cacao ceremony on Sundays from 3 to 5. And we did a walking meditation. And it was an extension of this idea of there only being one way you meditate. If you don't do it that way, then you're not meditating. Well, then that goes into the shame of, well, what's wrong with you because you can't sit still,
All of the above. Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
all the time. But now it gives you this opportunity to look at meditation from a much broader perspective. Well, you can walk and be consciously connected to yourself. What's the environment in which you're in. You become plugged in with nature, plugged in with the way your foot is touching the ground. You know, feeling yourself almost like pulling the energy from the ground into your body around, and you're just being one with self in that moment, and whatever you may be experiencing. And if you miss that idea of the importance in with connecting with self, then what's the point of just sitting still?
Oh, I would straight up torture myself trying to sit still, because that's what I thought, like that was the right way. This is how you met. I was trying to do it correctly instead of tuning into just the feeling, the relationship with self, like what you so beautifully elaborated on last time. But yeah.
And what resonates with you is the other part of it as well. It's like you're going to be more apt to be into something that you really want to be doing, you know? And if you got all this distortion and stuff in front of it, it's like creating this issue with you being able to do something. But if it's like something you really want to be doing, which is, you know, even if it's just in the kitchen washing dishes or something and you hate, you know, most people don't really like doing it. But like if you could even take that into a meditative state, you know, being conscious of how the water feels on your hands, the way the soap feels in your hands, the way that the residue feels on the plate, and you go into like this trance, and then all of a sudden you forget the fact that you're washing dishes, you know, and you've also made it a practice of something that you didn't really like before, but now you've taken it and made it into something of an experience that's like not so, you know, horrible anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you find yourself in uncomfortable spaces. You attune yourself to being like, okay, I feel this thing coming up. You know, how is this, you know, affecting me? And is there quite possibly a message that there's something being communicated to me through this feeling that, well, why am I saying it's uncomfortable? Why can't it just be just a different energy that I don't have a relationship with, you know? And you see, that's all being meditative. That's all like being consciously aware of what's going on in that particular moment, but it's also giving you some more information in terms of how to approach what's happening to you, you know?
Totally. So okay, so I'm remembering, and this was one of the main things that I've been thinking for 10 weeks that I wanted to tell you, was like when we got off the call last time, that day I probably sat there for like 2 or 3 hours total, and I was outside, and most of the time my eyes were open, but I was doing what you're talking about. Like I was being inside, like fully aware inside myself. So like even just keeping my eyes open, being allowed, like allowing myself, I guess I should say, to keep my eyes open was like a huge turning point. But anyways, the very, very first moment that I sit to like, I want to meditate, like you said, like if you want to do it, you will. If there's a reason for you to go in there and you want to go in there, then you'll find a way. And so I had this like burning desire. I wanted to meditate, and I sit to meditate. I close my eyes. I'm probably less than a minute in, and this like vision, this like movie in my mind like pops in, and basically what it is I am finding a, can I like be really dark and morbid for just like a moment?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good. Yeah.
Okay. So
You know.
I'm finding a blood trail, and I follow the blood trail, and I find my dog underneath the steps in my garage, and she's been shot multiple times, and she's under there and she's dead. And this is the vision that I get like a minute into meditation. And I open my eyes like instantly, because like all that happens in like less than a second. But like I open my eyes and I said out loud, and I thought this was the best part. It's like, this is why I fucking hate this, is because when I close my eyes, I see shit I don't want to see. Why are you showing me this? And I got so mad for like a little bit, you know, that's not where it ends. But I did what you had talked about, as far as like, you know, if you were going to hold space for a client, for example, and they said that this is what they saw, would you just run away from them? Would you just like make them shut it down? Like, no, you would sit with them and you would face their fear along with them. Like you would do that. And I would. And so why am I not willing to face this fear with myself? Why am I not willing to hold my own hand? and like walk into the shadow. And so I did. I took that, like not necessarily that visual, but like went back into closed eye meditation. I like got back on the horse and was like,
Right.
What is under this? Like, what's really going on here? And
Mm-hmm.
through doing that, it was like that initial fear was cleared to reveal like an actual real fear that I was carrying in myself, that
Mm-hmm.
I was very actually worried about my physical safety, and I hadn't really acknowledged that. And in that playing out, like it was like worst case scenario, what I was worried about, it was like having a nightmare inside my meditation.
Yeah.
And
Protect.
as I went deeper into it, that was the very first experience. And I was like, wow. And then I sat there for 2 or 3 hours because lots of stuff came up and I just kept being with myself. And wow, like changed my whole life. That was, 10 weeks ago, and lots has unfolded since then. But like that first experience of like having a nightmare in meditation would have sent me out. I'm not even going to mess with that for another year. I can't take that.
Right. Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, so I just wanted to see, like, I feel like I definitely got to the point of why I saw it. But if you have any words of wisdom around, like, really how to be with things that, like, it comes up and it hurts. It's painful. Like, it hurts yourself to like be witnessing these things that do rise up. And it's an opportunity. And yeah, I wonder if you can speak to it anymore, given you have way more.
Yeah, I can use just a personal experience of one that this just recently happened, and this, mind you, if I can be, open with saying, it was in ceremony when this happened this past weekend, and of course we're sitting with people who have very difficult things that surface as a result of them doing the medicine. Well, this particular situation was one where in the efforts of trying to help the person, it triggered something really, really deep.
In you.
Yes, in me. Like, it literally took me to a place where I had some trauma with, and me having that rise up and literally consciously just listening to the dialogue of all the things that I wanted to do as a result of this thing being triggered in me. But there was this other aspect of myself along with it that was kind of having dialogue with it, like, yeah, this could be warranted to do in this particular situation, but overall, is this going to be to your highest benefit to react in this way? And it was, the body and everything was coming together to respond to this trigger. But like, by me consciously having a relationship with just sitting with myself, with just sitting with things that are very uncomfortable, and allowing the grace of it to just be there. Like, this doesn't have to define your experience. This doesn't have to be the narrative for what's going on. It can just be a passing thought. You can just, if you could just sit long enough with it, it will pass.
Yeah.
It doesn't stay in the way that we conceptualize this idea of something, taking too long. There's a narrative to it. And if we sit long enough to kind of let the narrative kind of play through our mind, and then we see other things as a result of those thoughts, it's like, okay, now I can approach something differently, But if we're so constantly moving and we don't sit long enough, we're always consciously reacting to things, because we haven't even sat long enough to recognize that, okay, I don't have to approach this thing that way. I can actually approach this thing. You have options. You have choices that you can make. that otherwise you didn't feel like you could make. But when you set with the thing and you feel the thing, it's almost like, oh, well, damn, I really didn't have to do this or that, or, it's not as strong as I originally thought it was. It's all about a perception that I had towards a thing. But once I kind of set with it long enough to realize that, then it's like, whoa, well, shit, I've been making myself miserable all this time. And all I had to do was feel it,
For like this long, like feel it
Yeah.
much. And there's a whole release. There's a whole different perspective waiting, like just on the other side of being with it.
Yeah.
Because as I sat with it, like I boiled it down to like, this is my worst nightmare, like legit, like as far as anything that could happen in the physical that would really tear me apart, this specific scenario hit it on the head. And then I was like, but why am I scared of that happening? And that answer came like immediately. And then in realizing that that's why I was actually physically scared, my grandpas, who are like two of my guardian angels, like that's who I felt like was saying it to me. But basically that kind of loving source energy kind of presence said, like, basically, if anybody was ever going on their way to you to hurt you, we would just give you the impulse to move.
Yeah, you would know.
Like, duh. And I totally was like, oh my gosh, like, of course, I already believe that. Like, I already believe in my own divine timing, perfect place, perfect time. Like, and right on the end of that was a further explanation that said, like, basically, like, and if something happened where like you found your dog like this, like that pain would not be for nothing. Like,
yeah,
it's that we would never hurt you for no reason.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
there was just this, and it melted. And I sat there for 2 or 3 hours after that.
Yeah.
And I
That's
never
beautiful.
had another nightmare in my meditation. Like once that
Right.
played itself out, like it's been pleasant, basically. There've been little things, but nothing like that.
Right. Where you faced the biggest, you faced the thing that you thought was the biggest fear, and you overcame it.
Yeah.
So all the other things after that, it's like, really? Really?
Oh, just that? Oh, that's easy. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Huge. And so, yeah, it basically opened the floodgates of like, I am safe to feel anything.
Yeah.
And like anything can move through. And I mean, those first like couple weeks, like it was like all day, every day. Like I could not stop crying, like just crying, all like weeping and everything, happy, sad, mad, glad. It didn't matter. Like I was all over the place emotionally. Thank God I don't have to go anywhere, because I could just let it come out, and it did. And it eventually like kind of stopped. And I feel like there, it was this process of like moving to this like almost new level of consciousness where fear is not nearly as much the dictator as it was back in this level of consciousness. Like fear, it's just, like you said, it's not bad. It's just different. It's just a different energy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you afraid of again? Like, what? Because no, there's no reason. Like, no, unless a cheetah.
Now, did it also, like, did you notice like it opened your ability to be in touch with your sensations more?
Yes. Like I am so much more in my body, like inside my physical body in the moment. And it's almost like I read in a book this morning, an astrology book, but basically the point was that you don't just want to meditate, you want that meditative state to like merge with your reality, with like your state of consciousness. Like it's not about 10 minutes in the morning. It's about like setting you up for having that pause and that presence all day, every day. So it's a lot like you said, like walking to the bathroom or folding the clothes or like walking to the car to get in it and like putting my seatbelt on. It's like everything is like my full self is like present and is living out these motions. And so every single thing that you do. Every moment is an opportunity to be in that space of awareness and like consciously connected. And then yes, there's this separation from like the stimuli, the knee-jerk response, the pause, the choice.
Yeah.
And like I said, whole new level like of being in the world, basically.
And it
yes,
also affects
a huge part of that.
Right. And it also just affects the way that you relay information to the outside world as well, because your body and everything else is connected to everything, you know, and your intentions and all that stuff become more clear, and you start to align with things that, you know, resonate with that vibration that you want to have a little bit easier, you know, each time. And it doesn't become this thing where you just have to, well, I gotta stop. And you know, I got 17 different things I need to be doing, but I gotta stop and do this thing begrudgingly that's supposed to help me. But it's like and then it's like if I don't do it, just you know, then my whole day is not. Well, you know, I got mad at my boss because I didn't meditate today. It's like, you know,
right. What even
so
is the point? What's the point?
Yeah. It's like, where's the relationship to yourself? You know, where you're more connected to self. You know, and then these experiences aren't so isolated to you having to do this one thing in order for you to get this other thing. You know, if you're consciously in that state of awareness, then you're always, you know, in a meditative state, and you're always in a position to do something for your highest benefit, you know?
100%. And like, I love how you put it of like, you know, you end up being really counterintuitive when you get all serious about it, right? Because like, what even is the point anyway? I think I made a podcast episode about this because it was so funny to me that basically like that, I was like pushing myself to finish this task that I was working on. Meanwhile, I needed to pee like really bad. And I was like pushing myself, I'll just finish the task and then I'll go to the bathroom. And the bathroom is like 5 steps away. So at one point, it was like this like epiphany of like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are your priorities here? Because you're making this video, like this task is not important. This is 100% a passion project. You're doing it for the fun. And yet you're forcing yourself to be miserable while you're doing it because, and so there's this relationship that's clarifying like day by day through experiences like that, where listening to my body and being comfortable in my body is basically becoming my top priority. And the more I'm with like my negative emotions, the more comfortable I get in my body, which is very like almost counterintuitive. Like the more you let the discomfort come in, the more comfortable you are. But I don't know, that's my experience.
Well, yeah, but then you also release that way of handling things, because you're only gonna like play out what you're vibrating at the time. So you're uncomfortable, but you're not allowing yourself to really take care of the thing that's uncomfortable, but it's also coming out in your communication too. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because like you're holding that like all in your aura, you know, like that energy field around us, like it's telling the truth about us all the time, no matter what words we're choosing. So yeah, I feel like I've cleaned a lot of shit out of my auric space, my energetic field these last 10 weeks. And it just, there's like a deep sense of relief and like a new level of inner peace that I like, inner contentment that I have not experienced before. So yeah, it's like easy to know that I'm in a new place. Like it's easier to be in here than it's ever been. That's nice.
And it's way more enjoyable too, you know, now that you have the understanding and you have, because going back to that being in meditative state, like when I'm cooking stuff for myself, it's like I've, you know, taken it to be sort of like I'm romancing myself because I'm being a lot more conscious in the decisions that I'm making with the ingredients and how I'm preparing it. You
Mm.
know, it would be the same way as if I was cooking for someone else and I was wanting to make sure it tasted good. And, you know, I put all these ingredients to be impressive and things. And, you know, but I'm giving that energy out, you know. But then what about myself when I'm in the kitchen and there's this one extra ingredient that I need to put in there and I'm wanting to shortcut it and not do it? But then it's like, if I'm really consciously wanting to do something connected to feeling good, being in that state of just being with how I'm preparing it, and how I feel about it and how it's going to make me feel when it tastes good. And, it just expands this whole experience, to another level because I've chosen to be mindful in it. And I'm not doing this haphazard thing where I just sling it in and, it's like all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the other thing there was another friend of mine that was talking about this idea too and we got on getting on food, but it still goes with the
Totally.
idea of being mindful and conscious of what you're doing. And it's like, she was saying, well, that's the reason why when I eat, I never eat when I'm rushed. She says, I always make it a point to sit down or take time to be with the food, recognizing I'm honoring myself by, me giving this food to myself and making it into a whole practice, which is something that I've been really, mindful of, but just giving some other texture to it after listening to what she was saying and then sharing it with you. Cause it's like, I know you have a busy schedule and sometimes we don't think about it on those terms of just being mindful of eating,
Yeah.
actually chewing it, noticing the textures of it, how it makes us feel. And then we're not necessarily shoveling food in our mouths, we're in connection with the body's, signal of I've had enough.
Right.
Versus if we're just unconsciously doing it, we're just shoving food in and then we go past to that point where we're stuffed and now we're miserable, or we've eaten something that really is not good for us and we're not even consciously connected to the body in its signaling of this is not good.
Right.
We're just, putting it in our system and then we're living the consequences as a result of that. That's why our digestion, a lot of the emotions and a lot of things that informs us of our environment is in our stomach. And, if we're not taking care of that, we're not mindfully listening to it, then we're putting ourselves in position for disease. So, all of this came from the idea of meditation, but that whole focus can be taken into so many different things,
Totally.
that brings us in a healthier place, and helps us to show up way more authentic and genuine to things, in life. So
Yes. Well, and I'm glad that you bring that around to food because I hadn't connected this until now, but it feels super connected now that we're talking about it in the meditation conversation. In the last week or so, which is like maybe the first time in my whole life, is like I'll have my favorite food in front of me and will stop myself short of eating the whole thing. Where,
yeah,
I mean, if I have my little pizza or my sanchalada or like whatever it is, like I'm going to town on it. And when I've licked the container, then we'll be done. And like that's just been my whole life. And twice in the last week, I had my favorite food in front of me and I stopped at about 60%, not on purpose, because like the like rate of return of satisfaction with each bite had reached its point where like I don't need any more bites of this. Like I'm
yeah,
satisfied and there's more, but I don't care because I'm satisfied right now. And like
right.
I'm like, how I thought they were flukes. And now that we're like in the meditation conversation and like being more aware of your bodily sensations, like it all is like making a lot more sense of, yeah, that fits with like being aware. of yourself and the messages, what's going on inside of you. It's like
And
easy
go,
to feel good if you're listening, kind of thing.
yeah,
It's
the
natural.
body's always communicating something to us. It's always, all these nerves and sensations that we just don't, yeah, they help us to live, but they also inform us of so many things that we don't take the time to really listen, and really pay attention to, what's going on, and how much it's intelligent. We think it's this broken thing that we have to constantly be doing stuff to it, but it's often the other way around. It's telling you how to take care of it.
Yeah.
We just have to be willing to listen to it, and really to sit with it when it emits certain energies and certain things, because it's like, okay, how are we going to survive if we're not listening to the thing that we have that's helping us to survive? How can we be in co-creation to make this survival successful,
Right.
versus working against it,
Yeah.
which we don't have to.
Trying to fly a plane and like refusing to look at the gauges. Like you need those. They're required. They're giving you information that's necessary for you to not hit a mountain or like fall out of the sky. So it seems imperative that, in that way. But I agree. Like I have mostly operated most of my life like being very disconnected from my body and living from a mental to-do list, more or less, versus like listening to my own pace and my own hunger signals. And I've struggled a lot with binge eating in general in my life, like just overeating. And I think, eating your feelings, like classic. But yeah, that has also not necessarily like all the way subsided. Like I still get snackish sometimes, but it's not nearly as compulsive and endless.
Right.
And like, okay, I've had the almonds, I had the pizza, now I need this, now I need this, now I need like, and until you've like legit stuffed yourself to where you're going to be sick if you don't stop. Like, so yeah, to have like, I'm snackish, so I'm going to have almonds and this. Like, I'm going to give myself what I want, but it's not like what I want is getting like less and less and less and more in line with like, a person my size and like, what do I actually need to fuel my body versus what am I eating for entertainment? Because I definitely some of that. Yeah.
And I resonate with that as well because, maybe I've shared this in a previous conversation that we've had before, but I was originally like 245 pounds. And I'm like 5'9", 5'10", somewhere in there. And like, that was a lot of extra stuff to be carrying around, but it goes back to what you were saying. It was comforting.
Yeah.
I didn't feel safe, in my body. I didn't feel safe in my surroundings. I was in a toxic relationship that really didn't help change some of the habits that I was having at the time. I was drinking a lot. I was a big alcoholic then. And, when you get to drinking 2 a.m, Jack in the Box and those places become your friend.
On the corner, it's right there. Oh my God.
And they open for you.
They're there for you.
To provide you with support for your unhealthy habits.
Enable.
You know
much?
what Jack in the Box?
I know about Jack in the Box. The little churros.
Yeah,
oh
nobody
my
else
gosh.
was.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Nobody else was here for me, but you were.
Right. Never alone. Never alone. Yeah.
So I was really in a place where, I was listening to my body in a different way. It was from an unhealthy perspective, from this wounds that I'd been carrying around. And once I got to a place of saying, you know what, rather than me saying I want to lose weight or any of that stuff, I just want to feel better. That was the very first thing that I said. And I had no context in terms of what that was going to show up like, what that was going to end up like, but just consciously saying, I want to feel better is what took me down the road to finding all these other things. Right now, I'm about the same weight that I was when I was in high school. I'm 170 pounds. and it wasn't like I consciously said I wanted to lose a certain amount of weight. It was just the more and more I started paying attention to how things made me feel and was willing to be honest about it. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, yeah, I'm gonna eat this thing and it's healthy, but really, come on, really just getting honest with myself. Then it just opened the door for all these other things for me to find, and it just slowly started to leave off. But that wasn't my primary focus, was to make sure I was losing weight. The primary focus is, okay, how does my body feel?
Yeah.
When I'm doing certain things, how does my body feel, when I'm eating things, and being willing to be that more focused on that whole relationship with my body helped me to get where I'm at now, where it's like, oh my God, you know, I can experience all these things with a much more open attitude because I've taken time to really pay attention to myself in a way that allows me to have a better sense of things. And so, it still brings it back to this idea of being mindful, you know, because with me being mindful of, that's what really helped open up my relationship to my intuition and allow myself to follow it. And then as I started cleaning my diet up, then the sensations, that those gut feelings began to become more present, more. I was able to tune into it, a little bit more when I noticed something didn't feel right. And it's like, oh, I need to do something different because I recognize my body is saying this for a reason, and so having this way of just tuning in to yourself gives you so much more understanding of how everything works. You can see people a lot easier, when you can see them in the ways that they're showing up, because you've spent time listening to yourself, and you can, remove some of the biases that would otherwise make it difficult for you to see the person clearly too, so it's a lifestyle for sure.
Right? It's a practice, and it's something that like you get better and better and better and better. And I mean, there's no top end to that, and there's no right way, there's no right pace. Like it's unfolding in the rate and pace that it's meant to. Just like this
Yeah.
conversation, 10 weeks, like
Yeah.
working up to it. Like there's a reason to the timing of like what unfolds for us. And there's a reason that we don't skip straight to this part. There's a reason we get off track in the first place and like put on the 50 pounds to begin with, just so we can have the experience of like taking it back off.
Yeah.
Like that's part of it. That's like a real part that you can't just chop that part off and think your movie's going to be as good. It's boring at that point. Like nobody wants to see that. They want to see the comeback. They want to see like, how did you go from here to here? I feel like that's like the space I want to show up in, is the progress along the way, the like unending incremental steps forward, that like we're not trying to get to the end all be all destination of like, I am in my wholest fullest self and I am never going to evolve further because I'm perfect. Like that just doesn't even exist. And yet there's people running around out there who want to like put themselves out there like that, like they're the epitome of like good to go. And like,
Yeah.
no. We're going to be real, and we're going to say that it's a mixed bag, and the mixture is getting like better and better and better, more positive, more aware, more pause, and like you said, seeing people clearly, and all of that is like coming online in like little incremental steps. It's not like an overnight epiphany and then you're just done. Like I hope this isn't the last time I have an up leveling in my awareness. Like hopefully there's more to continue enjoying, like the incremental improvements as we go. But yeah, meditation, like it's giving me so much more than, like, I guess I don't know what I expected that was going to happen, but it's definitely more than what I expected. as far as the benefits and all of the different ways that it literally like filters into every moment of awake, sleep, talking to others, being inside your own brain. Like everything is different after having that piece click into place.
Yeah, once you decided to make that conscious choice of tuning into yourself, that was the thing.
Yeah.
That was the key to the whole experience. Is
Yes.
when you made that conscious decision to say, I want to tune into myself more, now you reap the benefits of it. You know, now you experience all the things that are unfathomable because of that, you know, that just that soul desire. Just the same, you know, reason why I was saying earlier, you know, I just wanted to feel better. Well, how do you do that? You're having to tune in.
Yeah.
You're having to listen more to yourself. And by doing that, it's like, okay, it guides you this way, guides you to that thing. And I was going to say too, when you're saying you eat till you make yourself sick, I was going to tell you that, you know, you don't have to, and not that you needed me to say this, but you don't have to beat yourself up for even that, because even in that experience, it's still helping you be more mindful, because now you're becoming more clear that, you know what, I don't care how good it tastes. I don't care how good it tastes. I'm not going to make myself that miserable
Yeah.
to enjoy it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Which
your
that's
conviction.
true. I mean, I haven't ever eaten until I actually did throw up. So I guess technically I do know my own limits. Like to a certain extent, my limits are just like really stretched out. But I had a very similar experience where like when I moved to Texas after school and got my first job, I gained like 40 pounds in the first year of living there. And Jack in the Box was one of the main culprits. Of course, it was me. It wasn't Jack in the Box, but it was
Of
my
course, yeah.
trips over there. And so, yeah, 40 pounds in that first year. And then I spent like 3 years on a weight loss journey in which I did get basically like 55 pounds off of my frame. And what happened at that point, I say that that kind of like broke open my spiritual journey, at least like planted the seeds of how my spiritual journey would begin. Was I looked in the mirror 55 pounds lighter and was like, I still look fat. Like, what the
Yeah.
happening here? Like, I still look
Yeah.
ugly and fat. Like that was,
Yeah.
and I was so dissatisfied with like, where is the moment where like this is supposed to fix me? Like I was not fixed. I was 55 pounds lighter and I was just as hard on myself and unhappy on the
That
inside.
narrative.
Yeah, like that really did kind of give way to the spiritual journey then, kind of kicking off in the year or two after that. And yeah, I was very disillusioned at that point because I had done the weight loss and it didn't change anything. So like,
Yeah, you
what
had
have I
done
been
the
doing for the
thing.
last 3 years? Like I needed that, you know, but if anything, like since then I've gained 20 pounds and I'm healthier than I was back then. Cause I was losing weight. I was losing weight and you can lose a lot of weight, but that doesn't mean that you should. And I was
Yeah.
having like blood sugar crashes and like just couldn't keep myself feeling good. I was nauseous all the time and I was hungry. Like looking back at it now, like my body was basically starving and I just like lived like that for a while. And yeah. So now I'm 20 pounds heavier, but I don't have health issues like that. I feel good when I wake up in the morning. I have healthy everything. So yeah, it's like when we start feeling good, your body just naturally finds its way to,
Right.
yeah, I think, I don't know.
On its own.
Yeah.
On its own process. And that's the other thing, well, how important it is to kind of, you know, tune in, because your rate of weight loss is not like the next person. It's uniquely the way you are designed to lose the weight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you hold yourself to certain standards that are not necessarily yours, it creates this whole nother shame and guilt towards yourself because you're not holding yourself to this particular standard, you know, because you're not losing weight and the rate that someone else is losing weight. Well, certain things are designed for certain bodies, and if your body is more comfortable at being at a certain weight, then yeah, and that's with honesty, you know what I'm saying? It's like recognizing that, hey, my perception of somebody else's worth or beauty is based on their size, then what the hell is wrong with me? Why am I using someone else's standards to judge myself? You
Mhm.
know, when I can be just as amazing with the way I look, if I accept myself and if I know that I'm doing the things necessary to take care of myself in healthy ways, then why am I not esteeming myself more than what I'm esteeming others, in terms of value,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then I noticed on the end you said, well, I'm 20 pounds. And I think it's always funny when you kind of say those little comments, almost like, well, I'm where I'm at right now, instead of stopping there, you say, well, but I'm 20 pounds, 20 pounds heavier than what I was before. And recognizing being grateful for where you are,
Oh, I am.
being thankful for where you
100%.
are. And I mean,
Yeah.
of course, not saying that you're not,
Yeah.
it's just that,
Well,
that knee jerk thing that sometimes we do, like, well, in relation to where I was and this sort of thing, it's almost like I feel like I'm good, but then you always have to put in, well, I'm not perfect, instead of just saying, hey, I'm where I'm at and I feel great for where I am,
yeah.
regardless of
No,
the outside perception.
I'm glad you clarified that because I definitely didn't mean it that way. Where
Yeah,
like I feel like I tell it that way because I was like basically sick at
yeah,
100 or at that weight, like at my lowest weight, where I thought I looked good and like I did not feel good on the inside. And
yeah.
when my mind flipped to I would rather feel good on the inside, my body added 20 pounds back and I feel awesome. And I guess the end of
Mm-hmm,
that story is like you said, like it's where your body is comfortable being. And
mm-hmm.
I know for my body, like it's basically right here. And now I don't like I can eat whatever I want and I don't gain weight because this is like I feel like gaining weight is like almost more bottling up emotions. Like I know for me in that
Yes,
first year of being
the
in
matter.
Texas and like eating all that shit, like that was my misery
Yeah,
that I was carrying as literal pounds of fat on my person. So
they're better in Texas.
oh my gosh, like
Buffets everywhere.
man, they say the freshman 15 or whatever, like when you move away and go to college, like that one didn't get me. I didn't see a difference and I was like, ha ha ha, that's not a thing. And then I moved to Texas and gained 40 pounds and I was like, fuck.
Mm-hmm. Like, there you
All
go.
right.
Take that. That's
Whoops.
yours.
Yeah,
Take
this
that.
is
That's
real.
yours.
I'm very unhappy here and I don't know what to do about it. So I think I'll just have another cheeseburger. That obviously is the
Yeah.
right answer, you
See
know.
this? It's a 3/4 pound of meat. And you put a couple of
Yeah.
those on 2 pieces of bread, boy, you got something going.
Yeah.
I just want cheese on mine. You don't have to put the other healthy options on there, the lettuce and tomatoes
Sure.
and the
Just
onions.
leave that out. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I got a salad,
It
but
was
it's on 2 thick pieces of meat. you know, you're
well, and
not
like,
necessarily.
dude, it's funny. And I get that. And I laugh like when I think about like the choices I was making, like in terms of how I was choosing to show up in the world. Like I didn't just magically gain 40 pounds. Like I was making
Yeah,
multiple choices every day that were resulting in that. And it's not lost on me that like that was one of the hardest years of my life emotionally.
yeah,
And it also resulted like basically it's like it shows me what my coping mechanism was at that point and that yeah I
yeah.
didn't have anything else. All I knew how to do was like eat a bag of chips and a thing of gummy bears and maybe now you'll be so tired that you'll just fall asleep and at least then you're not
Yep.
awake and that was pretty good. I like that. So yeah, it's like
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like I was just struggling. I was like barely hanging on and food was like the only thing that was getting me through it. It was like my entire support system was in a fast food lane kind of thing, which,
well, yeah, if you think about it, that's why the holidays are the way they are. It's like you get around a bunch of people you don't like sometimes and you eat.
that's all you can do.
That's your comfort, you know. That's the only way you can make being around uncomfortable people comfortable is by eating, and a little too much of it. So then you pass out, you go to sleep. That's another 30 minutes or an hour of a conversation you don't have to have with somebody that's uncomfortable. I mean, and not to say that this happens at everybody's family. I'm just speaking for mine,
Oh no. You're speaking to the collective, I think, at this point. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a real thing.
But it all goes back to how you feel, how things making you feel and how you're responding to how things make you feel, You can put anything else in that equation, but then it also goes back all the way back around to the original thing. If you're not sitting with yourself,
yeah,
if you're not, reparenting yourself, being that person that listens to yourself, then you're always going to find these unhealthy options out there, And so it's important that we do tune in and we spend some time listening to ourselves and really getting to know ourselves and how we've been responding to things and how we can make our experiences better by tuning in to the things that we know that'll help us, to make things better, so it is a process. And I congratulate you on your process of your relationship to food and things of that nature, because even after this conversation, things will start coming to you even more like, oh, wow, maybe I can, because even when I talk about favorite foods, I've gotten it so to now that I've learned how to make a healthy option of that same food, which creates even more excitement.
Yeah.
It's like I can have a cheap food, but it's really not in the sense of how cheap food would be considered, because now I'm more conscious of how sugar tastes, when I eat pies or anything like this has a lot of grease to it. There's a whole different relationship where it's like I can drive by a fast food place and, most of those places have the smell in the air so they can trick you in there, And now I can drive by and like, you know what? As soon as I get the smell, my mind goes to the grease.
That's all it smells like, is like literally grease. Fast food French fries taste so different to me now. Like I didn't eat fast food for like 6 months. And then I had a French fry and I was like, oh my God, that's disgusting. Like it's literally just grease. Like, and I would crave those like hardcore fast food French fries. Oh my gosh, like chow down for sure.
McDonald's. Well, them McDonald's fries, they know they ain't right. Boy, they know they ain't right.
They're lethal. They're just too good. And they're the perfect size and the perfect mixture of crispy and chewy. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, don't even the right amount of salt. Like I am a literal former fat kid. Like I can still go deep in the old fat kid ways, but I'm with you. Like, yeah, at this point, like natural peanut butter tastes as sweet as I am interested in, like, and an apple. That's like my cheat. It's like those are good. Yeah. Where that was
almond butter.
Yes, like that has so much sweetness to it that like if you're constantly eating sugar, it tastes so different. But if you're not eating sugar, it all of a sudden is like magically sweet. And your taste buds like naturally do an adjustment thing.
And it's like you start to really recognize how much your sensations are like pushed to the max with things like pies you buy. It's like a whole bunch of sugar in it. And it's like, once you step out of those ways of tasting things, it's like you actually taste the food now. You actually taste the food.
Yeah.
Your taste buds, the the sensations of it hasn't been so exhausted, that now you can be with the food as you're eating it, and be more conscious of how it tastes and how it makes you feel when you're eating it, and you find ways of enjoying it more because you're consciously tasting it and you're not just barreling through it.
Right. Powering through. Yeah. Yeah. Mindless eating. I mean, that's definitely what I would get up to. It's like it's entertainment. It's something to do with your hands, basically. Well, and like for me, one of the strategies that really worked, especially early on, was like I couldn't figure out how am I going to stop snacking. Like it was such an ingrained part of like how I spent my time that basically what I did was like, one example was like I stopped buying 5 bags of gummy bears every week, and instead I would buy a few pounds of cherries. And they were expensive, but I would do that, and then I would eat them, and I could have as many as I wanted. And eventually, like when you're eating more natural sugars, I think you get to a point where you're like, yeah, I've had enough cherries. But gummy bears, oh my God, I could just like down those forever, and literally doing 5 bags a week. So I had to like make substitutions. Like I couldn't just say, stop snacking. Like you're not allowed to do that. Like I had to allow myself to.
Bad girl.
Yeah, right. Like that was never going to work. Like I'll rebel against myself so hard. I'll eat 2 bags of gummy bears just to show you can't control me.
How about that?
It's just me and me. I'm just sabotaging myself. Like, but I did. I had to like give in to myself and make a healthy choice. Like it was like a compromise. So like cherries, apple, and peanut butter. You can have as much peanut butter as you want. Like, I mean, there had to be room to still feel like I was enjoying myself. Like that was a very real requirement in my process. And so substitutions like that made it easier.
And it's fun though, if you think about it, when you start going down that way of finding snacks, there's always these other alternatives that, like, you know what, if I want to eat a whole apple and slather on there some almond butter or cashew butter, I don't feel as bad.
No,
because
I got
it's
no
not
guilt.
like, it's like not like me eating like 6 candy bars, and I could do that, that would get, especially when you get those little nugget ones. Oh my God.
Just pop them in. Oh, I love the little square Snickers, the little like baby ones. The squareness, just like by the time you reach in and there's no more in there, that's such a depressing feeling of like,
I know,
how did I eat all of this? Right, you're disappointed and you're mad at yourself because like, how did I eat all of this? Like, who ate my pie? Like, it's just oh my gosh, yeah, that's had to be something like that. And it was something in me realized that it's not going to be an overnight change. There's only like getting relatively better than I was yesterday, making a relatively better choice. So like instead of going in the kitchen at work and finding a donut, like maybe skip the donut, have a Cliff Bar. Like you're not trying to starve yourself, but like it's relatively better for you than this thing that you would normally do. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be a little bit better and a little bit more in the direction of where you want to go. And it did. It took me 3 years to lose the weight because it wasn't fast. It was very gradual, but it gradually came off for 3 years, like it does work, maybe not as fast as you think it should,
but you gained a whole lot better perspective of your body and how you were feeling as a result of going through it with that process. Because if you're losing it fast, you're not really retaining anything. You're not really retaining the lessons of the process of how to stay there or how to improve on it, I mean, and I went through that process, like you're saying as well, get that binge eating and, getting up, eating 6 eggs for breakfast, and damn near looking at, man, how long in a carton of eggs gonna last? It's like,
not long at all.
You're literally looking at my pants get into a size of where, nothing is stylish anymore. It's just some fabric,
Right.
with some loops in it. You might as well be putting a rope around it. It's like to hold it up. And it's not to shame anyone's progress or process with the losing weight game. Is just recognizing sometimes how you stop paying attention to yourself, and then here's what happens.
Yeah.
You stop being mindful of yourself in healthy ways, and this is what happens.
Yeah.
And I'm not treating myself right. I'm not taking care of myself. So all these things are extensions of that. And so once I made that decision, and you made that decision to do something different, then it's like, here's some other options that show up for you.
Right.
I mean, take it out. Who would have thought that I would like eating beets and things of that nature in the ways that
Right.
I'm doing it. And it tastes really good. And it's like, oh my gosh, I feel so much more fulfilled and refreshed as a result of these options that I'm now taking an interest in. And then it opens the door to all these other things that I didn't even think were possibilities,
Yeah.
And as long as you're willing to have some patience with yourself and not beat yourself up so much with the process, it's like all these doors open, to expanded ways of seeing things. And then you eventually take that into the relationships you have with people, too. It expands the way that you see them and how they're doing things. And you're like, oh man, I remember how it was when I did this thing or that thing, and how much of a struggle it was to, and then you have a much different communication
Right.
with them as a result of it. Because I listen to you talk about your situation, and I just immediately think about mine. When I was going through the process, and I was, picking up information along the way to help me to be better with myself, and how I realize I'm not like everybody else. So my body doesn't respond to things like everyone else. There is a specific way of interacting with it that gets these results.
Right.
But then it just goes back to listening to it, which ties it all back into that mindful attitude, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm.
And how eating 3 bags of gummy bears feel. And man, I don't want that feeling
Not great.
anymore.
It's really
Let me do a bag or half a bag. See if I could just mindfully eat one at a time.
and
And then
that
my
just
body
like
says,
wasn't a thing. Like there was no portion control happening in any of it. And so I'm like, okay, so
yeah,
then the answer must be to don't buy the gummy bears, buy something else. So at least when I go in the
yeah,
kitchen and I'm foraging for snacks, there aren't gummy bears there. There are cherries. And you can have those as much as you
yeah.
want. But like that was
Cherries
how
is
I
good. I
had to do
love
it.
cherries.
I know they're delicious. Like I wasn't sad about it. I was liking my options. And like another one that I remember that was like a really big deal. So like a cheeseburger is at the top of my list of favorite foods probably. And especially where I was traveling a lot at that time. So I ate in a lot of restaurants and I loved like trying burgers at different places because they got some fancy ones out in the world.
Oh
Goat
yeah.
cheese on there and like all kinds of things. So, anyways,
Get it.
I had to figure out like, what am I going to eat instead of the cheeseburger? And I'm traveling all the time. So, like, I'm relying on restaurant menus. And what I figured out was like, I hated salad at that time, but I figured out that if I get the fried chicken salad, like get some blue cheese dressing, the fried chicken on there, crispy
Oh,
chicken
yeah.
strips, and then I would eat like maybe 3 or 4 bites of the lettuce. And like as I did that for a couple of years, I actually started to enjoy like salads. And then that kind of became my thing of like they got fancy salads out there with like chicken and strawberries
Yeah.
and all kinds of things that they put on there. So like it was such a gradual process of I couldn't just give up cheeseburgers and have salad. Like, fuck that. Like, there had to be the crispy chicken strips and as much dressing as I
Yeah.
wanted. And like, it
Oh
had to
yeah.
be
I was
workable, Like, exactly.
there.
But that was just a stage along the way. Now, I mean, I don't need dressing and crispy chicken to like salad. I genuinely enjoy it. So it's such like a retraining And can we jump back to something that you mentioned of reparenting, where like I've definitely heard the phrase or the term before, but haven't spent a whole ton of time like specifically engaging with it. And I wanted to ask, like, how would you describe what it means to like reparent yourself to someone who's brand new to this idea of doing that?
No, it's basically just like to be more something that's a little bit more tangible, just seeing yourself as a child, you know, and at that particular moment as a child, you have a certain thing that you need, you know, and like now that you've learned to kind of sit and listen to yourself more, it's like tuning into that particular the child self and its needs. You know, how can I provide for myself, you know, with that need now that I'm an actual adult, you know, and can actually do something about whatever it is that I might be needing. You know, the parent is the one that nourishes, that protects, you know, that provides for, you know, because the child can't, you know, in any given state of being, when you find yourself in a state of pain, you know, how are you dealing with that pain? You know, are you sitting with it? You know, are you using alcohol or anything to numb yourself out? Well, you know, how are you taking care of yourself? You know, reparenting from a sense of you being more mindful of your needs, you know, being more actively doing things to provide for those needs. You know, listening to yourself is another way, you know, because the example that you received from your actual physical parents was inadequate. You know, it didn't provide you with the complete nourishment or the, you know, the protection or the safety that you needed to be in that particular point in your life. And so right now you have an opportunity to do so, you know, from a state of awareness of, you know, how to provide for, you know, how to protect, you know, how to provide those things to nourish yourself, you know, whether it be through foods, you know, just, you know, habits that would help you to feel better, you know, whatever that may be, you know, in your estimation. And I don't know if I'm really making sense. What I'm saying,
I
because
I think so.
there's
Yeah.
there's so many things that come to mind when you think about this aspect of reparenting, because you look at the examples of how you were raised and the things you were taught and how you grew up, and now you're finding ways to give, you know, healthier information, you know, for yourself so that you can actually interact with the world in healthier ways than versus the ways in which you were taught.
Yeah.
You know, the influences, the examples that were provided. You know, now you can consciously tell yourself that, hey, I don't have to practice this thing or do this thing. There's something else that I actually can do that's way more healthy for me, you know, to be doing, and that's way more nourishing, you know, for myself. And so that's what I mean in terms of reparenting. You just taking all that stuff and putting other things in place that are, you know, in accordance to what your needs are
Yeah.
at any given time. It's a smorgasbord of information there.
That was delicious as far as smorgasbords go. Um, it reminds me of like basically one of the things then that I guess I'm reparenting myself on is like my workaholic tendencies, that like I was very much raised with like you laziness is like the biggest sin there is, and that like you're only as valuable as you were productive today. Productivity is a
Yeah.
big deal. And like accomplishing things and good grades and having a job and like all of these things were just kind of like base level expectations, to the point where now I'm like reparenting myself in a way of like allowing myself to rest when that's what I
Yes.
want to do, even if that's like 7 days in a row of not being productive. Like, if that's where I'm at, that's where I'm at, and like honoring that. And the other example was Easter was just here very recently. And like basically when we were little, I mean, there was no choice. Like, it's Easter family, like you're going, and
In
it's a
church.
big thing. And there was no church, but there was like a family gathering where it's like all of us cousins and grandparents and everybody is there, and it's loud and it's busy, and I have a huge family. And basically I
Yeah.
decided a couple weeks ago for Easter, I'm not going. I don't want to go there. Like, it just really doesn't sound nourishing or fun, or like it's calling me there. Like, nothing about it is calling me there other than a sense of obligation. And
Yeah.
what I'm
Nothing fulfilling
practicing
about it.
like in my whole life is I don't do stuff because I'm obligated to. I do it
There
because
we
that's
go.
what I want. And so
There we
I
go.
didn't go to Easter. And of course, like the next time I see my brothers, one of my brothers is like, "So why weren't you at Easter?" And I was like, "I stayed home instead." He's like, "Why?" "Because I wanted to." Like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, this is all I have, is that I didn't want to go.
This
So
ain't
I
about
didn't.
you.
Yeah. Like, it's
Yeah, this
really,
ain't about you.
it wasn't personal. Yeah, exactly. It's not personal. I just don't want to go there today. So should I or shouldn't
Mhm.
I? Because my parents and the way I was raised say, of course you would go. Like, why would you even
Yeah.
ask that question? And yet everything I'm practicing on my spiritual path says, of course you shouldn't go. If you don't feel
Yeah.
it, if your heart's not there, then aren't you doing more harm than good by showing up in that
Yeah.
space without your heart? Like, what are you, why would you even consider going if you don't feel like go? Like, it just is so
And
two
that's also
very different ways of looking at it.
and that's also placing yourself in a position where you're unsafe. Think about it.
Mm.
You're taking yourself out of the space of being safe, to force yourself into a situation that you're already energetically not even comfortable with.
Yeah.
So that's another example of reparenting. You're providing protection for yourself.
Yeah.
Think about the childlike self, putting your childlike self into an experience or in a circumstance that is unsafe, you know, placing them in a space of danger, versus like, no, don't go to this particular place because it's unsafe, for you, you know, listening to what the little Carly would feel like
Yeah.
if the parent sent Carly into a place of all this chaos, all this space of things not being loving, and then not being there with them, it's like
Yeah.
you just
You're
them
on your
out
own.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which now, because you have this better awareness and understanding, it's like, well, no, you stay home with me, little Carly. You know, we're gonna take care of you and help you to feel safe and help you to feel comfort, help you to even feel seen. Because
Yeah.
most of the time when you're in these family structures like this, it's like you're not being seen as you are. They're basically placing all this stuff on you, these burdens of, well, if you don't keep mom or dad happy, then it's not going to be a good time. You
Yeah.
know, all this extra stuff that gets placed upon you that you have no real choice
Yeah.
per se in the manner because you're there, and yeah, if you just felt compelled to be in this space, there's things you can do to kind of help, but why go there? You know,
But that's
there's
was
no
my conclusion. Yeah.
yeah, there's no value in it, other than, yeah, you get to see them, but all the other stuff that comes as a result of you being there is like, man, I don't want to do this shit. It's like I could be at home, you know, eating some popcorn or,
Any
eating.
number of fun things that, like,
Yeah,
being at home feels good. And like that day, yeah, I mean, thinking about like little girl Carly, like how did she feel? She was already tired and she knew it would be loud.
Yeah.
And she knew that, like, I mean, basically, when we go there, to your point, like, yeah, we don't get seen. It's like you're just a body as part of the family unit, and the chaos and the
Yeah.
craziness of all of this, like, you just get lost in the middle of all of it. So I'm like, does it even really matter if I'm there? Like, I I don't feel like that's the best use of my time. And
And
at least
energy.
that day. Right, exactly. Like I wasn't I wasn't in it. I didn't, my heart was not there. My energy level wasn't just like, okay, I'm going to shower and get in my car and head over there. Like, I mean, if it had been meant to unfold, then it would have. And it did not. I had nothing but, don't make me go. I don't want to go. And then I'm like, wait, no, I'm in charge. And I'm sure as shit ain't going to make myself go. So I guess we're not going. Cool. Yeah.
I'm not gonna be miserable half the day.
No, I'm not
Why?
going there. So I let myself stay home. And that reparenting feels really good, to let myself stay home when I want to, because that was another one that, like, my mom was like, when you said, I'm sick, she said, do you have a fever? Have you thrown up? And if the answer was no to both of those questions, then you went to school. And so
Yeah.
multiple times she had to come and pick me up from school, because within the first hour I'm throwing up in the bathroom or whatever. Like I'm truly sick, but she didn't believe me.
Yeah.
So it's like she
Right.
pushed me to do things that I'm telling you, I don't want to do that. I can't do that right now. I don't feel up to it. And there were no honoring of those kinds of limits as far as I would speak them out loud. It was always just, no, you go to school, like, period.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so stupid. And can I be excused to go puke in the school bathroom, please? Like, that's just so annoying. And
Adds
so,
another
yeah, like,
level of trauma because people are making fun of you in class and all that stuff.
right.
You know?
Hopefully you make it to the bathroom and you're not throwing up like in the hallway on the way there or some shit. Like, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of those things where, like, yeah, I mean, when I would say I don't want to do that, there was usually like, you're being lazy or something like that. So, I mean, I haven't even like really thought about this until we get into this whole concept of reparenting. Like, these memories are just like one at a time, like coming to the surface. I'm like, great, come on up and let me see, like, how was little girl Carly treated? Because I think a lot of it, I've like made peace with it to the point where it doesn't really come up, but it's still in there. I think there's
Yeah.
for little girl Carly to be reparented now and to be allowed to call the shots. When you don't feel like going, then let's don't go. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
You feel
reason to go.
unsafe.
Yeah.
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 And honoring that going back to what your body is experiencing, what your body's telling you is the other thing, is that you're being more in tune with that. Well, my body's like not wanting to be in that space,
Right.
and I have to remind myself of that too sometimes. It's because there's a lot of stuff going on. And I'm like, you know what? Well, my body is telling me just to lay down, lay around. If I don't feel like eating, don't worry about it. Just wait another time, just get some rest. And sometimes that's the nourishing thing. It just feels good to get in bed sometimes at 7 o'clock,
Yeah.
and otherwise I'd be trying to stay up till 10, 11 o'clock,
Yeah.
but with my body's telling me this, then I need to honor it, don't go through any extra effort, like of making sure just, hey, I need to rest right now.
Yeah.
And you find that when you start doing those types of things, on the other side of it, it's like, guess what? I avoided listening to my brothers or sisters arguing with each other. It's like, there's all this stuff that you start to realize, oh my God, what was I doing to myself? And
Right.
just staying home and being with myself, and how quiet and peaceful it is. You start to even find your relationship to your inner strength growing too. Your inner power starts to become more evident. It's like, I have the power of choice right now. I don't have to go.
Right.
And, just because your brother asked you something about it, your power was showing up. And you know what? I did what was best for me in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that matters. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't really matter.
Right.
You know, I was doing what was best for me. You know, I was listening to little Carly talk, and and she said she didn't want to hear you
No, she was not
hear your
not
shit.
into it. No. Well, and that's like in that same conversation, the same brother is bitching about how loud it was and how the kids are fucking like they're crying and they're screaming and this one fell down and this one banged his finger and this one, he's like, and I'm like, so why did you go to Easter? Like I should have
Right.
asked him, like forget why I wasn't there. Why did you go? Because we all know what it
Yeah.
is. Like you weren't, that's not
It's,
new information. That's exactly what happens every
yeah,
time.
and
We
he was
fucking laugh.
secretly envious of you.
Oh, I
You
think
know.
so. Totally. Totally. That was really what was underneath. He's like, why weren't you there? Why weren't you suffering along with
Yeah.
the rest of us? We suffered like we were supposed to. Where were you? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you can come to
I'm
my
not gonna
house
do
next
that to
time.
myself.
Yeah, we'll be in the
Right.
quiet and we'll sit on the porch and we'll have a lovely conversation, but I am not going to be surrounded by 15 screaming children. No. All my
Yeah.
cousins,
And you
like they're having
find
a race to see who can have the most kids. It's insane to me. I don't know. And it's
who can be the
loud.
most miserable.
Oh my God, it's so loud. Well, they're all farmers. So like the kids
Yeah.
are working. Like it's like the 1900 like back here in terms of like those kids are
Yeah.
farm kids. Like they're helping. So, and most of them like it, like that's the
So
soul
now,
that they chose. They knew what they were getting into. But yeah, it's
mhm.
just like it's a loud environment and no part of me
And you
wanted
start,
to go.
right, and you start paying attention to how and you've talked about it before. Is you're starting to pay attention to how you're using your energy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're really more conscious of how you're using it and what's replenishing it and what's exhausting it. You
Yeah.
know, you start to become more balanced with it. You know, and it all still carries this idea of you paying attention to yourself and being more with yourself and being more conscious about things.
Yeah.
How it starts to lift your vibration and you're really just starting to be a lot more present with things. Because even if you're there, you're not really present.
Never.
You're not really there with the experiences because there's so much going on.
I'm
And
like
then
legit
even
counting
when
down the minutes. Like, okay, so I'm going to stay for at least 90 minutes. And I'm like, okay, so I have 87 more minutes to go. Like, this is how it is, like while I'm there. So I'm like, why
yeah,
would I subject myself to that? Like, what's the value that I'm getting? I don't know. I don't.
and then
Yeah.
if you're really attached to the idea of why you're there for, you mean the idea of it's supposed to be for Easter, but then there's that whole other thing that goes on with that as well, and you're like, I'd much rather spend my time, doing something that I really resonate with, that really helps develop this relationship spiritually to myself. There's a lot that's to be said about forcing yourself to have these, particular holidays for certain reasons. And, you could go down a rabbit hole with that as well, but it's just that energetic relationship to things that it just starts to change. And when you start to become more aware of yourself and why you're doing things and why you putting yourself in these spaces of harm for the sake of other people's perspectives and ideas and things of that nature. And it's just not necessary,
Yeah.
you know, but you've been imposed with these ideas that if you don't do these things, then it says something about you as a person when it's like, no, you know, it doesn't say anything about me. Yeah, you might resonate with that thing and it might somehow form your identity around it, but not mine.
Yeah.
You know, that's not mine. That's yours to deal with. You know, it's not my burden to carry. You know, and
Right.
my energetic relationship with myself is not going to be affected by that thing.
Yeah.
You know, and just because you try to impose it on me as if though I'm supposed to, abide by that standard, no, that's where my inner power steps in and says, well, I know what makes me feel good, and I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
whether you agree with it or not doesn't really even matter. And you've said it before on some of your videos as well, too, about that whole idea. That's why you're doing the videos,
Yeah.
because you have a specific way of showing up that may not be like everyone else.
Yeah.
But then there's always somebody out there who is actually looking for that, you know, that way of showing up that's not like everyone else.
Yeah.
Something uniquely tailored to who they are, and how they resonate and how they move through, the collective. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Well, I feel good about it. And honestly, I think that was probably the best thing that I could have shown him, because like when I think about in the grand scheme of things, like who do I want to be in this world? Like I want to be an advocate for self-empowerment, and I can't be forcing myself to do things I don't want to do and empower others like at the same time. Like, yeah, so
Disempowering yourself.
it is like it really is to like set like be your parent in that moment and like set whatever rules make the most sense for the child, not
Yeah.
to what society is expecting of that child. And yeah, I mean yeah, that gave me like a whole thing, but we're not going to get
Yeah.
well, okay, so what came up was like, so I'm pretty sure part of my mom sending me to school was like, at that point, like all four of us kids were in school. And if I stay home sick, then her whole day is different. Like she was a stay at home mom. So like, she's like, no, you're going to take a shot at going to school. And it really was like, I don't like, I want you to be somebody else's problem. And that sounds maybe a little bit harsher than she ever, like, I don't know that she ever consciously like meant that, or she definitely didn't say it. But at the same time,
her actions,
like, kinda, yeah. And so I'm like, I think it's just a deeper honoring and loving of yourself, rather than just assuming that the way your parent parented you is as much love as you deserve. Like that was just as much love as she had to give. Like she had four kids within 4 years, and she's tired. She wants you to leave so she can feel like a grown up and not like be stuck in all of these children. Like I feel that, but at the same time, like, yeah, I mean, I definitely then grew up to treat myself like that, as far as like pushing myself to do things that I didn't feel like doing, but that's my responsibility, that's my obligation. I gave my word, blah, blah, blah. Like I have to live up to this agreement I made with society versus like honoring the way I felt at that time. So that's shifting and reparenting. Okay. That's a helpful word to kind of like put all of these things together and like just bring that awareness to it because I think like sometimes we're so even blind to our own conditioning, like we don't even know that we're treating ourselves a certain way. That's just how it is. That's just normal. And so it's helpful to see your current behavior in how your parents treated you, like how they demonstrated that this is who you are supposed to be. And then like waking up out of that can be challenging.
And then, a lot of that stuff is based on their fears, so they're in a sense, they're projecting things onto you, that's not even yours, in our morality. It's their relationship to themselves and their environment that they're basically imposing on you when you have no context or no relationship to the thing that they're afraid of or even trying to teach you sometimes at the time, and so when you have an opportunity to repair it yourself, you're able to assess what's going on in your now moment.
Yeah.
And now put things together to help you, to go forward, with things, your emotional needs, your physical needs, your mental, things, all of those things. How do you address those things now from that's not attached to their ways and their things,
Right.
you know, because now you're moving into a space of what looks like to be healthy, and they didn't have that,
Right.
you know. They were living in a cycle of what they were given, the tools that they had, you know. They had a broken wrench and they still trying to use it. They had a bent screwdriver, they still trying to bend, trying to use that. And now you're sitting here noticing, well, why the hell are you using a bent screwdriver? And why the hell are you trying to use something that's broken to try to fix, what purpose is that gonna, do, serve you? So now that you're becoming more conscious of this stuff, then it's like, okay, now I can fully, deal with these things from a better set of tools to use, to deal with things.
Yes.
And it's not like it's
Well, because it's not like when I moved to Dallas and I gained 40 pounds because I was experiencing like deep depression and I didn't have any coping skills. It's not like I don't still have like negative emotions, but I have other tools in my toolbox that I know how to use and that I can bring to the situation. And that, yeah, like when I think about my eating habits, like I eat a lot like my mom does, like I learned my coping skills from somewhere. And like, dad, he's almost a daily drinker for the most part. And he calls it like pressing the reset button, that like after a hard, frustrating day, you just like tie one on and that's the reset button. You get up the next day, you do it all again. So like I watched him be that way my whole entire life. He's still for the most part like that. And so it's, these things that I might beat up on myself for, like, I don't have these coping skills by accident. And I have taught myself other tools. And as I have other tools, I'm less dependent on the coping skills I learned in childhood, which, I basically had to live them out to see, like, this isn't healthy. I don't, like you said, I don't feel good. This doesn't, like, I feel like I should feel better than this. So maybe I need to start tweaking what I'm doing here. That all had to like unfold in its own time. But yeah.
But you earn those lessons and you're a lot more committed to the changes.
Yeah.
You're learning a better relationship with yourself and learning how to trust yourself and, being more with yourself. So it's informing yourself of a different way of approaching your environment.
Yeah, like the difference between a lifestyle change and a diet. Like I feel like I tweaked my lifestyle like piece by piece by piece by piece, and that was sustainable. Like I taught myself a new way of eating. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to cut this step out, and then once I lose the weight, like I can go back to normal. I was leaving normal behind on purpose because normal was not working for me. So I needed a new normal. So I built a new normal, and like that's that lifestyle change piece. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And being committed to that is also, being as consistent as you can to it is forming a whole another thing with the way you're doing things. You have something that you can rely on, something that that you're receiving some sort of benefit from, and you keep going, and there's other things that open up to kind of help you stay on that path too, because there's plenty of things out there that help you to stay consistent with doing things unhealthy.
Oh yeah.
It's everywhere.
Well, like you said, like relationships, like when I'm in a cycle of being unhealthy, like the relationships that I attracted, like it was like in that first year, the only friend I had, we would get together, get drunk on wine and bitch about work. And we thought like, oh, like this is helping, like we're venting and like we're feeling better. And no, we were wallowing in like all of this shit. So it wasn't even just me. It was like, now I'm, in this friendship where she's right there with me. And now it's like getting better requires disentangling from this support structure that I have in my life. So like changing now is more complicated because if I don't drink anymore, or if I like cut back on my wine for a while, like that's all we do together. So like, am I going to lose my friend? And I basically did, like at the end of the deal. Like my healthy habits took me over here, and like we just didn't have common ground anymore. And you know, I think that comes back to like the whole honoring yourself thing. And like you're the only one who never leaves you. And if the changes that you feel like you need to make to feel best inside yourself take you away from certain people, have you skipping Easter and whatever else, like maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Maybe that is for the highest good of all, even if it, you know, may not make sense in the moment on the surface, kind of thing.
Yeah, because you're taking the opportunity to do something different, which affects change. You know, it affects change because who knows, your brother might discern, and I'm just using that as an example,
right?
Might be like, you know what, Carly did it, so
right.
why not I try it out? You know, it's like, why not I try it out and see what happens? You know, I mean, because everyone's obligating themselves to something that they obviously probably don't want to do either.
Yeah.
But it takes somebody else stepping outside of the box and doing something different. Then it's like, oh, well, you know what? I do have a choice. You know, I don't have to put myself into this space. Or then it also causes people to reflect on their attitudes and their ways of doing things. It's like, well, why aren't people wanting to be around? Well, because you're a butthole.
For real.
Sort, you know?
That's like another situation in my life where I've been like releasing a lot of guilt these last 10 weeks. Like while I'm crying, I feel like that's part of what's coming out, is like, that is a situation that's playing out where I just stopped going around this particular person. And now it's been like 5 months since I've seen them. I've only talked to them once in that entire time. And I was like feeling really guilty, but I'm like, no, because I think putting up with the shitty behavior is literally hurting them more than helping them. Like, I think ignoring them and staying away, like at least then I'm not enabling. I'm not signing off on you behaving this way, because when you're acting like that, like I'm out of here and I'm not coming back. So like, I'm not going to put up with it so that you think like it's not as damaging as it is. Like, I think me deciding that like, I'm not going to tolerate this and I'm going to go over here and you don't need to change. I'm not going to try to sort this out with you and put it all back on you, but I am going to choose to not be around you anymore. And that's for you then to like, you know, figure out in your own self-reflection, what's that about? You know, why does she since I've seen her? Like, well, think about it. Think about our last conversation. See if you can figure it out. You know, that's not
conditional.
For me. Yeah, it was bad.
And that's typically misery loves company. So you're going to attract what it is that you are, you know, in any given moment. So if you're vibrating that thing, then guess what? You're going to draw more of that thing in, and your perspective is still, you would be stuck in this perception or this filter of the way that you're seeing things, and no one is seeking to change it. You're seeking just to confirm it and to find people to agree with it, versus, you know, having someone that just steps outside of it and it's like, you know what, we can actually be doing something different.
Yeah.
Than us staying in this, always wallowing in the bad parts of our lives.
Yeah.
You know, who wants to find, you know, joy and happiness? Let's gravitate towards something like that. You know, something that's going to change the way that our jobs have been affecting us. And hell, why don't one of us just quit and do something else?
Well, and it is like that. It's like, you know, what is the point of going here? Like, kind of back to that point of like, how are you using your energy? Like, I was forcing myself to go there, and I didn't want to go there for a long time, but that's what I needed to do. So I was doing it. And I mean, literally, like I was settling for this low vibrational thing because I was continuing to participate in it, is what I mean by like settling for. And I was getting like, he was just behaving worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And finally that last day, I just like snapped and was like, I'm just done with this. Like, I'm not mad at him. He's not wrong, but like, I'm not going to show up to this anymore. And that's between me and me. I'm not going to put myself through this. And so then I felt really guilty that I wasn't going. And that was like a whole month of like unraveling that thread. But over time, it's been easier and easier and easier to the point where now I don't even think about him like at all, unless, you know, it comes up through something else. But for the most part, like I've just kind of forgotten that he exists. And every once in a while, when I do think of him, I'm like, oh shit, like it's almost 5 months since I've even seen him. And the world hasn't ended. So like that's the other piece of like back when I didn't want to go, but I felt like I had to keep going. I did that for so long. And then when I finally quit, it was like nobody even noticed. Nobody said anything. It wasn't a deal. It wasn't anything. So I like forced myself to be uncomfortable for so long when like, why? Why did I do that? It's just where I was at the time. But it's good to know now that like the wheels didn't fall off when I stopped doing the thing that I thought I had to do, you know, like
life still goes.
Yes, it does. Doesn't require me to be there doing things that make me miserable.
And then you also have an opportunity to choose happiness and joy for yourself. You know, you can start doing that more often, you know, than making it feel like you're obligated to things that really don't actually serve your highest benefit.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times people will want you to do things for them, you know, not taking you into consideration, you know, your health. That's how jobs are like the way that they are. You know, there's people there working, doing stuff they don't really want to be doing, you know, and it's just affected their homes, their families, and all that stuff, you know, just for the sake of, you know, trying to earn a paycheck. You're making yourself miserable at the same time. You know, so I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you stepped out, you know, to do some of the things you're doing, because you know, you wanted to have a different relationship with things.
Totally.
You know, you definitely wanted to start trying to take care of yourself. I'm sure that was part of it. You know, you didn't want to be just beaten against the prick for something and, you know, expecting something different, but you're still doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Waiting on him to just magically like be nice, like be cool to be around. And I just kept showing up and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And I think, yeah, I mean, a good long break was apparently exactly what we needed. So that's still ongoing, and it'll play out however it's meant to play out, you know, like trusting in myself, trusting in my own intuition. And like you said, like still when I think about going there, my body doesn't want to. Like there's nothing inside of me pulling me there other than a thought that maybe I should, maybe I'm supposed to, like, you know, and none of that feels like authentically desiring to go there and talk to that person. Like it would be putting myself in an unsafe situation. And why would you do that? Yeah.
You're not even benefited from it.
Not of other than the shadow work that comes out of it, which is definitely not lost on me. I mean, I have like a whole power struggle dynamic where I have a tendency of like thinking that someone else is more powerful than me. So I put them on this pedestal, and then I'm relating to them as if they are more powerful and I am less powerful. And it never fails. Anytime I enter into a situation like this person's only the most recent one. It's like they do have to overpower me until I stand up and say, no, this is my power. I am going to assert myself. I am going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to go along with what you say. And it's like this whole up leveling in my own self-empowerment journey. And people like this are there to help kind of push me into it, where without them, I mean, I just would be Like if nobody was like really dominating me, I probably wouldn't have stood up like over all of the different times that that's happened. Like that was kind of necessary as part of my shadow work and like unlocking what I was here to do this time. Seems to
it was a catalyst.
Yeah,
it was like the catalyst for you to make the changes.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is important. Like, but at a certain point, you're like, no, I think I got the lesson and I don't need any more of the catalyst. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Have a nice life. Yeah.
I don't need no more of this. You can have it.
Right? I say all the time, like, you get what you settle for. And like, this was just another level of like accepting and integrating that into my life. Like, why are you settling for being treated this way? Why do you continue to show up for it? Like, you're getting what you're settling for. So stop that. Stop settling for it and maybe get something different, you know? So, yeah.
You'll feel a lot better for it. You'll feel a whole lot better for it.
Totally.